the real estate topic today is how to choose a lender. So last Thursday, we had a closing where our client did not take our lender recommendation. This particular client, we gave them a couple referrals to some local lenders that we use on a normal basis. And they decided not to go with that particular lender. Now, I think we do a good job of making sure we don't guide the client to use our lender. We just let them know, hey, look, if you don't want to do the research, here are a couple lenders that we've had success with. So this is who we recommend that you use. Now, this particular client decided that they wanted to shop for a lender via the internet, really. They just went on the internet and they just kind of filled out random forms. I think at one time, this particular client was speaking with like 4 lenders at the same time.
I got pre-approval letters from 4 different internet lenders.
Right, so we got pre-approval letters from 4 different internet lenders. And usually, I gotta be honest with you, usually I am opposed to using internet lenders just because of the fact that it's harder to control the transaction, right? Because if you think about it, when you hire a real estate agent, you're really hiring us to secure the property for you. You have a property you want, you hire us to get that property for you by any means necessary too. And so sometimes we see the lender as someone who can obstruct the process of you securing the asset that you want. And oftentimes, especially with internet lenders and Navy Federal, a local-ish company, that's another company that makes it challenging for us to do our job.
It's not as bad when they're local though. Like, we had one a few months ago that, it was an internet lender. It was a Navy Federal lender, but they were local.
Right.
And so that made it a little bit easier because of the same time zone. And I actually had a cell phone number I could call. I think that the biggest hurdle I run into with the internet lenders is the time zone difference.
Yes.
We're on the East Coast where, first thing in the morning, here in America is on the East Coast. But when you're dealing with an internet lender, you may have somebody who is in, Pacific time zone. And so if we're trying to get things done, it's, 3 hours earlier for them. I can't call them on the phone. So sometimes that presents an issue for us as far as availability.
So communication is one of the key points that you want to use when you're choosing a lender. How does the lender communicate is going to be important for us and also important for you when gauging the effectiveness of this individual or this company. The particular lender that our client used, I'm not going to say their name, but they have like a whole team of people that are assigned to the client. So it's very challenging to figure out who is true.
So I would reach out to the loan officer with a question. And then he would filter through. He was like, well, let me check with this person. And then he would get back to me, usually by the end of the day. So I'll give him that. Usually by the end of the day, he would get back to me, but he never had an answer for any of my questions.
Right.
It was always, let me check with Dave, let me check with John. It was always a different person. It was every time he said he needed to check with somebody, it was always someone else.
Right.
And so that was a little bit of a challenge. And since we're talking about communication, another hurdle or challenge that we find is sometimes we don't have this person's phone number or we don't have anything other than their office number. Now, I know some real estate agents or people in the industry want to attempt to believe that it's like a 9-to-5 job where you don't have to have their cell phone number, but a lot of our business happens between 5 p.m. Friday and 6 p.m. on Sunday. A lot of our business happens because that's when clients are available to see properties. That's when they tell Abraham they want to make an offer.
When you find a lender that you like and that you feel like you want to do business with, because you don't necessarily have to already choose the lender that you want to use before we go into contract, right? So the lender that you use to get your pre-approval letter, it may not be the same lender that closes the deal. We understand that, and that's fine. The main thing that we want to do is we want to have at least a conversation or some type of communication between ourselves and the lender to see how they work, because a lot of the paperwork is on your side of the table, right? So you're buying the house, they're asking for your financials, but there are certain deadlines that we have to meet on your behalf. There's some documentation that we need to provide the lender on your behalf. And we just like to be able to communicate with that individual at the beginning of the process.
And hear back promptly.
And for companies that are internet lenders, and this is just in case you're thinking about using an internet lender, this is just some of the challenges you may face. They may not be as prompt, and that's not their goal. Their goal is to be more affordable or provide you with the most savings. And so you have to weigh the pros and cons of the affordability aspect of it and their ability to communicate with you in a quick manner, because that's not why you hire them, right? It's not to say that they're not full service. It's not to say that they're like some type of discount service. That's not the point. The point is you just need to know when you're dealing with this particular company, this type of company, these are the challenges that you have, and communication is one of them. So if you know that up front, right, if you know that going in, then you can ask that person, or you can ask the automated system, however you log your information in, who is my point person? What is their contact information? What is their cell phone information? Can I introduce you to my real estate agent? That's what we really want you to do. Whatever lender you're communicating with, we want you to introduce us either via email, text message, whatever is the best way to for everybody to communicate. That allows us to start a dialogue with the lender on your behalf. Because like I said, there's some things that we need to do for you that it becomes very challenging if the lender either A, has never heard of us, B, there is no introduction done, C, there's no contact information. You would be surprised how many of these internet lenders just don't have easy access to communication.
Yes, we can't get in touch with them, or we attempt to reach them over the weekend, and we don't hear back until, it's business day. Because we don't have a direct line of communication. It really, I think it depends on the market, because if the market is a little bit slower, maybe you don't have to rush to get the lender to call. But in the market that we have been in, it's been advantageous for our buyers to have the lender call, the same day we put the offer in.
That's true. That's true.
And sometimes those offers go out over the weekend.
And this is all lumped in together with that communication piece. Communication throughout the entire process. Like Crystal alluded to, when you're placing an offer on a property, one of the things that we like to do to set your offer apart from the other buyers who are vying for that property, and really not even for other buyers, even if the market isn't going gangbusters, right? We want to make sure that the listing agent feels comfortable and confident with your offer and our services, our ability to represent you. So you want to make sure that the lender is communicating with the listing agent, so then the listing agent at least knows about the lender. Because I'll tell you this, on my listings, when we get an internet lender, we try to make contact with the internet lender to make sure that that piece of paper that they send with your offer, it means a little something, right? Because if you think about it, those pre-approval letters don't mean nothing. They mean nothing at all. So a lot of this is good faith, and we're trying to maintain the good faith of the transaction as best we can, right? A lot of this is just like paper mache. There's no weight to it whatsoever, right? Think about it. What is a pre-approval letter? Some of you can get a pre-approval letter right now by providing your name, your address, not even your address sometimes, your social security number, and your estimate of your annual income, right? So that's all you need. You can get a pre-approval letter. So what is that document that we're looking at? It's nothing. So it's the relationships that we have, which translate into some type of value. So communication is important. Another thing too is to consider is that it is not just about the rate, right? I would say that that's the second thing you want to think about or consider when you're choosing a lender, that yes, the rates can be advantageous to you. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't make your decision, or the rate shouldn't be high up on your decision-making system or algorithm or analysis, right? But you have to consider that if you don't get a good faith estimate or some type of cost worksheet that shows the true expense of the loan, the lender can move fees around to make it seem like the rate, right? The only thing you're focused on, the rate is better, but maybe they may have higher closing costs, other fees that
loan origination fees, things of that nature.
Exactly. Yeah. So you want to make sure, if you want to do an apples to apples comparison when it comes to a lender, get their fee sheet, right? Get their rate sheet, their closing estimate, whatever name they have for this particular document. You want to get that document for all of the lenders that you're interviewing, right? And once you get those documents, compare those documents, and that will give you a better understanding of what the rate is. Like, how does the rate really affect my loan?
And then one more thing, last thing he has on the list is going to be history of success. And I think that for a lot of lenders, their reputation precedes them, and that's local or internet. And so we have found success when we're in a competitive market, right? We found success when we're working with lenders who have a good reputation in the area. On a couple of occasions just this year, we sent offers in for clients, and the agents have said, oh, I know this lender. I've worked with this lender before. They represented one of my buyers in the past, or I actually just did a transaction with this lender representing a buyer on a listing that I had. And so sometimes that reputation is really important. It's a people business. And so real estate agents and lenders have relationships, and it helps us to know their track record.
Right.
They either have a history of success or not.
In a hot market, you'll most likely need to have 2 pre-approval letters when you are making your offer if you want to use an internet lender. I guess this is what this segment will be called, using the internet lender, right? And especially because we're in Northern Virginia, our prices are higher. So we do have a lot of transactions over the entire region, but it's a large region. So it's not like a lot of transactions just stacked on top of each other. So with that being said, a lot of the listing agents are going to be the same. They're going to have a history with the community they live in or the area they service. So they have their preferences. And when you are placing an offer on a property and you want to use an internet lender, remember, I said earlier, you don't have to use the lender that you received the pre-approval from.
Yes, you just have to use the same type of loan.
You just have to use the same type of loan. Yeah. So what you may want to do is you may want to actually get a second pre-approval letter from a local lender. And once your offer is accepted, then start the negotiation process with the lenders that you are choosing to use, right?
Which is what that last client did.
Right.
The one who got the 4 internet loans, the 4 different internet pre-approvals. He actually was pre-approved with one lender, and he hadn't made a decision at all which lender he was going to use. It wasn't until, I don't know, we're 4 or 5 days into the ratification period that he actually selected.
So when she says ratification period, that means we put the house under contract. That means all the parties agreed to the terms, and then our client was still shopping for a lender.
Yes.
Right? And I think,
which was frustrating for me.
Right. I mean, it is frustrating.
It was frustrating for me on the administrative side because there are some things that I'm trying to get going and get the ball rolling, and be mindful that you have to have this done within the first few days. Like you can change later in the transaction with notice, but still, like, you need to get the ball rolling as quickly as possible.
That's true. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation with you all, our guest, is that the internet lender performed, right? And our client got a great deal. I got to say, I've been doing this for 13 years. I've always shied away from internet lenders just because of the stigma that's been attached to them, right? About the fact that maybe they don't communicate with you effectively, which is not a lie, right? The fact that the listing agents don't like offers from them, which is not a lie, but you could save some money. And
our clients did save money. And I will say, although they were not very proactive as far as communication, they always got back to me within the same business day.
Right.
And I actually got the clear to close quicker than some of our local lenders.
That's true.
So I think that it's a scenario where you really have to evaluate whether it's reviews or talk to people who have worked with them in the past, whether it's talking to someone who may have used the internet lender, or talking to an agent who we had success with this lender. And so, I have a call set up for you and this lender in the coming weeks, just because they did such a good job for our client.
And we want to make sure that on our end, our clients are getting a great deal. And also you could trust our recommendation, right? Like, yes, the local lenders that we refer you to, we've had lunch with them. We know them personally. They know our family. So there is like this relationship capital that's there that we're trying to abide by. But after this last transaction, after my client saved all of this money, and after you start to see the tangible benefits of some of these internet companies, it makes sense for you to just know what you're going to face in the market using these types of entities, right?
And also, I think that our client had the advantage of he was not in a competitive situation. The property that he placed the offer on had been on the market for a little while. So I think that made it a little bit easier. It wasn't a situation where the house came on the market Friday and offers were due Sunday.
That's true.
So it wasn't one of those scenarios. I think that benefited this particular client. I think that he benefited from this market. I don't know if he had put that same offer in. Well, of course we can't know. Would he have had the same results in, August?
That's true. Yes. The market determines like how flexible or what type of options you have as a buyer, and also for a seller too, what I'm saying. The market determines how creative you can be, right? And as the market starts to slow down just slightly, you may be able to do some more shopping. You may get to use some more options. And that's all great news on your end. And we are super excited that our client got the house they wanted, got the rate they wanted, got some discounts from the loan officer as well. All great stuff. And I wanted to have that conversation with you all just so you can know. Internet lenders, they're not all bad. This 13-year-old vet is coming coming around to this whole technology stuff. I guess I'll stop sending faxes over, and also I'll stop sending mail out with my
snail mail
correspondence. Yeah. If you have any questions, have you used the internet lender yourself? Have you used the internet lender? Let us know in the comment section down below. How was your experience with the internet lender? What internet lender did you use? Would you recommend them? Was it a great experience? How was the communication? Did your offer get accepted? Did you have to use some type of strategy to get your offer accepted? Like, how was the whole process? Let us know. I'm sure other people will love to hear your experience down below in the comment section. So my name is Abraham Walker. This is Crystal Walker, my co-host and wife. So I handle the sales side of the business. Crystal handles the administrative side of the business. So we make up the Ask a Walker team. We do these videos as a way to interview for the job before you meet us. We know how intimate the real estate search process is, and what better way of you knowing who you're going to work with than to jump in on one of these videos, see how we communicate, see our ability to research and be knowledgeable about the area. Because, you know, if you're relocating to the area, or even if you live here, you just don't know a real estate agent, your friend maybe just referred you to somebody. How do you know what that person knows? You really don't, right? And most people just don't know how to interview real estate agents. So we do this channel, we have this channel, we do these videos so that A, you learn more information than you would otherwise know, because we do a lot of research to put these videos together, and B, so you can interview us. So if you like what you see, our contact information is going to be right there in this little ticker thing right here at the bottom right there. There's also a link in the description to our Perfect Home questionnaire. It's a few questions that we ask you to fill out about your upcoming real estate needs. Once you fill that out, you'll get on my schedule, and then we'll schedule a Zoom session. On that Zoom session, it'll last anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour, and I'll answer any questions that you have about relocating to the Northern Virginia area.
Well, thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week. Have a good one.
Peace.